All right, can anybody hear us now? Are you there? Anybody hear us? Hello out there in YouTube land. I'll wait till someone in the chat room says they can hear me. Hello, hello, hello. All right, there you go. All right, lots of yeses. All right, good.
Well.
All right, good deal. Glad everyone is here. We had some. We're still learning how to use this software that Brad over at the big family Homestead has hooked us up with, and obviously every time I start this software, I have to make sure that my microphone is selected in the software, because if I don't, the one time I don't, it's gonna not be connected. So even though it's connected to my computer, the software has to have it selected. And it's been that way every single time up until now. Just all of a sudden now, it's not working. So yeah, there's no video. There's never any video for our podcast, folks. It's just simply audio. It's a podcast, okay? So it's not a video. You want to watch our videos? You have to tune in and subscribe to our YouTube channel and watch our videos there. We are off grid. There is no lights, so we are, by candlelight. And I'm sorry, but our HD webcam just will not pick up us very well, and you're just going to be disappointed anyway. So let's just not do the video. So someone's saying they can't hear us again. Can you people not hear us again? It says the live stream health is good. Can you hear us now? We can hear you. Okay, great. All right, so here's what we're going. We're going to go ahead and get started. We had gotten started before. We're a few minutes behind. So let's just start over. What did we do this week? We're going to talk about some of the things on our list today. It's what would we do over again if we were going to start homesteading from the beginning? Some of the things that we've looked back on and say, you know what? If we were going to start homesteading all over again, what would we do differently? And so I have some things we're going to talk about today. And both me and Jaimie have things on our list. So what did we do this week, though? Let's start off with that before we get to our other news stuff and our topic for the day.
Well, I was saying before that you didn't hear that we canned our great big gigantic squash that Zach grew in our garden last year. It's been in the kitchen almost an entire year at this point, because we put it in the fair and a couple weeks ago now, right? Last week?
Yep.
Anyway, it won a blue ribbon.
First place, blue ribbon squash, and it was harvested last fall. And the new squash are growing, and they're just about as big as my thumb right now. And I don't know what kind of squash these are. The seeds were given to me. In fact, a couple of the squash were given to me, and we saved the seeds from our friend Travis Huey over at myaquafarm.com. That's myaquafarm.com. And his kids actually drove out here and delivered these squash to us, and we've been planting them ever since. And they're coming up again this year in the garden. We planted them, and they're doing really well. And they're huge. They're just gigantic, and you probably saw the video of the fair where we had a blue ribbon on one, and Jaimie carved it up this week and canned it. And I don't know what the name of these are. I just call them the Ozark Mountain Potato. That's what I call it. The Ozark Mountain Potato. So
it's really, the flesh is like really sweet pumpkin.
Yeah.
It tastes really good, and I use it exactly like I would pumpkin.
Yeah, it's a pumpkin squash. Tastes delicious, and I just call it the Ozark Mountain Potato.
Anyway, I thought it was really cool that we just kept it in the kitchen, not in a root cellar or anything, and it lasted, and it was fine. Almost an entire year before I did anything with it, and it was fine. I love winter squash, and I really love how it tastes, but I also really love that you can just stick it on a shelf and don't have to preserve it.
Yeah. Less work is good. We like less work.
Oh my gosh, it's awesome. Just to think that you can bring it in from the garden and just stick it on the shelf and just get to it when you want to. It's really cool.
Yeah.
So I like winter squash. But I did decide to can it this week just because I really love to have canned pumpkin available to use whenever I want.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to do that a lot coming up. I'm going to dedicate a part of the garden that we haven't been using before just for winter type squash that we can, it's good. Less work is always good. So the least amount of work you can do to set up and preserve food, the better. And so we're going to plant a number of different types of squash that just go on the shelf. You don't have to do any root cellar stuff with them. You just keep them, and they last just the way they are. And so there's a number of varieties that we're going to plant next year. And a friend of ours over at Shalom Acres, the Haas family, gave us some seeds for some squash that were really good. We had for dinner one night, and so we're going to do those as well. Anyway, what else? Somebody mentioned this week, why don't we do something with our... Oh, yeah. They were like, they saw the video of our evaporator, and they were like, hey, you can get sap from birch trees and walnut trees and other trees and make syrup out of those trees. Why don't you do that? And my response was that it's more work. I can get sugar from maple, which takes a lot less maple to get down to a syrup, and sorghum even, which even takes less, and I still have sugar. Whereas if I do birch trees or walnut trees, look at all the work involved with collecting all the extra, because it takes way more sap to get the syrup. And so they're like, why don't you do that? I'm like, well, it's more work. Why? I already have a way to get sugar with sorghum and maple. Why would I do the extra stuff with birch and walnut and whatever other trees? There's a reason why maple wins out the day when it comes to sugar production. It's because it doesn't take as much to produce a good amount. So that's just, we like less work, for good productivity. We want good production with least amount of work. So we're always going to try to do what it takes to stack our pantry. Let's see, we did that. I cut a bunch of grass this week on the homestead, and probably you other homesteaders that are out there listening, you got to keep up on the grass. And so we mentioned the zero turn we got, and that really helps us keep up on the grass and chores like that. It just makes the place look nice. And so my big thing is we want the place to look nice, not just, be functional, but look pretty around the homestead. And that's just, it comes with cutting the grass and keeping it trimmed and making it look presentable. I've seen people who just live in dumps, and I don't want to live in a dump. I want to live in cleanliness is next to godliness, as they say. And I like to look my stuff to look nice and presentable for the most part. Now I like a rustic look.
Yeah.
Rustic has its place. Don't get me wrong, but you don't want to be cluttered. At the same time. So I've been doing a lot of grass cutting, keeping up on that, and I was on the sawmill the other day, and I cut a bunch of 6x6s and 5x5s. We're getting ready to put a pavilion over the sawmill, and it's going to take us a couple weeks to get it done, but I think we're well on our way to get that started. I've got the holes drilled for the posts that are going to go on the ground, and I got a guy coming over tomorrow who's helping us with the sawmill, and we're going to get some more posts sunk in the ground. And we have the trusses already on site. We're going to get the trusses set up, and we're going to have a pavilion over our sawmill so we can saw this winter under cover, and that's going to be great. We had a battery incident this week on the homestead. I went out one day, and our batteries in our aquaponics were dead, and I went out there. I'm like, uh-oh. So I went out to the batteries, looked, and sure enough, I had not been paying attention to the water levels inside of the lead acid batteries, and it was below the plates on most of the batteries. And so I was like, uh-oh. So I basically...
He was freaking out a little bit.
Yeah, I was freaking out. Because, that's an expensive uh-oh. So, replacing all those batteries. So I immediately went inside, got all of the distilled water I could find, and ran to town, got more distilled water, and topped off the battery bank. And the batteries are fine. I went out there, I came out there this morning, and it was sitting at, I think, 25 volts or whatever, something like that. Any other batteries, any lesser batteries would have just been destroyed by that kind of treatment. However, we have on our battery bank a desulfator. It's called the Battery Lifesaver. And there are people who will tell you that this thing is not worth the money, but I'm telling you, the reviews from people who use it say otherwise. The Battery Lifesaver, if you have a battery bank and you have a solar setup and where you have a battery bank that needs to be charged, you need the Battery Lifesaver. I'm telling you, that thing works. It desulfates batteries, it brings them back to life. And so the bank was down really low, and I filled it up with the distilled water, charged it back up, ran the charger, and boom, it was up and running, and it was saved. It was saved. So that was a close call. 'Cause that's like an $800 oops. Each one of those batteries is about $100 at Sam's. It's the Energizer 6-volt batteries that we have for that battery bank, and there's 8 of them. So they're about $100 a piece. Joshua's getting started with Rosetta Stone. He's learning Hebrew, and he's 9 years old, and he's starting his foreign language training already. Next year, people laugh, but next year I tell people next year he's starting Chinese. And they laugh, but I'm serious. He's starting Chinese.
I don't know.
This is, I've always been told, you want to start language training early for kids. And, here's the bottom line, and Jaimie will tell you, homeschooling is a huge part of our homestead because our kids are always constantly doing it. She is very serious about making the kids, have a love of reading and learning, these basics that they have to have. And in my opinion, language learning is one of those basics. My wife, Jaimie, grew up overseas. She was in Papua New Guinea, and there was a lot of other foreigners, some Europeans who were her peers who lived there with them. And I remember one story where you were telling me about how this guy who we went out to dinner with this guy. This was after we were married. From an old schoolmate. We went out to dinner with an old schoolmate, and the schoolmate, his wife was there, and they were hearing on the radio Morse code. And the wife didn't know, but the husband knew what it was and was telling his wife what it was on the Morse code on the radio.
His father was a pilot.
Right, but he said he had been taught since elementary school Morse code.
Yeah. Well, he was from Switzerland. Right. And the thing is, I don't know if any of you know, but the school system in America cannot hold a candle to some of the schooling that European kids get.
Oh, absolutely not.
And anyway, so he talked about how just from going back to Switzerland after he graduated from high school in Papua New Guinea, which was primarily a kind of, it was a good education. We had AP classes and everything, but he had to do an additional year of high school even after that just to catch up with his peers in Switzerland.
Yeah. It was just amazing to me, at a young age, this kid was learning Morse code, and it was just second nature for him to be able to listen to it and translate it. And it's that way with I've met other people when I lived in Germany, when I was in the military. I met people who were nationals, German nationals, and they were like they had learned 4 or 5 different languages in school growing up, and from between elementary and high school. And our kids today in the public school system don't do any of that. And so I'm like, my kid, when we have children, I'm like, this is not going to be that case. They're going to start learning languages early, and so he's starting Hebrew, number 1, this year, and he'll continue these as we go on through the years. But every year he picks up a new one, and so it'll be Hebrew, Chinese, Russian, and French.
Yeah, I really keep him busy all day.
Yeah, I mean he's you demand. Hey, listen, folks, you demand a lot out of your kids, they will give you a lot. They know how they can handle it. You gotta demand the excellence, and the
way that I look at it though is that people say our children are our future, but I really believe our children are our future. They are my future. They are Zach's future, because we hope to one day have this homestead belong to them, and they can work the homestead. We've been really amazed with people around in this area who have been living here their entire lives.
Yep.
Their kids don't stay. Their kids go back to the cities.
Every single one of them leave.
And they get jobs in the city. They raise their families in the city. And it's heartbreaking because they don't follow in the steps of a farm life.
Yep.
And we talked last week about how important it is to start homesteading in the environment that we're living in today, with our media, with everything happening, going on, the craziness of the cities, how important it is to start homesteading. Okay, but we want our kids to stay. We want our kids to grow up here and stay here and benefit from all of the hard work that we're doing to create this life. And then hopefully in our old age, they'll be here to be able to provide for us.
Yeah.
And that's our hope, and that's our dream.
Listen, folks, the colleges today aren't giving your kids jack. They're not giving your kids anything that they can't learn on their own for free on the internet. And it's insane. And the fact that you're putting them through these universities or whatever, and they're just going into debt for the rest of their lives for the schooling, and it's crazy. My kid is learning. He's 9 years old. He's learning C# coding, programming. So it's ridiculous that the school systems today in this country, and basically what they're doing is they're just creating everyone to be in debt for the rest of their lives. So anyway, that's what Joshua started today, this week. He started doing some Rosetta Stone language learning. It's just the beginning of a long series of those that he's going to be doing. You guys went and got books from the library, and the kids. I mean, when you brought the books home, the kids just went nuts.
It's so crazy to me that, I read these statistics about. I think a statistic I saw this week was that by the time kids graduate from high school, they're less than 20% of them can actually say that they will pick up a book and read it on their own just for the heck of it.
Right.
Less than 20%.
Less than 20% will do that.
And they were making the point with all these statistics, there were some others, but with all the statistics, they were making the point that the parents who actually had books in their home, who actually read aloud to their children, those were the kids that excelled. Those were the kids who went on to actually higher education, maybe loving learning. I'm not saying that higher education is for everybody. Like Zach just said, you don't necessarily need higher education, but actually to have a love of learning. Those are the kids that excel. And that's what I want for my kids. I'll work really hard to make sure that we can do that and that we can provide things for them to read and have a love of learning. And I have to make it a point to get to the library and make sure that we're rotating our books on a regular basis.
Yeah, colleges today are all about activism and convincing the young skulls full of mush that you can change the world. Instead, what college was supposed to be doing was to give you a love for learning, to teach you how to learn. And it doesn't do that anymore. It just doesn't. And there are some things, some jobs in the world where you do need to go to school, higher learning to get, obviously you don't want to have a brain surgeon who never went to college, but if you need that kind of treatment. But for the most part, it's just some of the stuff that kids are going to school. I saw that there was an activist thing going on some campus this week. They were protesting firearms with plastic pieces of male anatomy. It was just ridiculous. And I'm like, why would you send your kid to school to be involved with something like that? Anyway, I got lots of stuff to talk about tonight. I don't want to get caught up on that. So I wanted to say something else, too. People have talked about their gardens and deer who get in the garden. And I found something else that works. For the last year or so, I have had a radio with NPR on in the garden. And I've talked about that in my videos, and some of you guys poke fun at NPR. But it works because there's such a variety of different things on that radio station when it comes to talk, when it comes to different types of music. And so it keeps the variety different so the deer never know what's going on. And it's better than just one station, like a country station or a talk station, because they will get used to it. But NPR is so varied that they never get used to the types of content that's on that radio. So I turned the radio. The radio's been off for like the last 2 weeks. And the deer are going nuts on my sweet potatoes that are out there on the leaves and also on the Jerusalem artichokes. And so it's like as soon as it went off, they came in and started chewing on the garden. And so I'm like, that radio works. If you're trying to figure out ways to keep deer out of your garden, try a radio and set it on NPR and see what happens. Just give it a go. I bought that radio, cheap radio at Dollar General. Most of you guys have a town with Dollar General in it. And buy one of these cheap AM, FM radios and put it on NPR and just see what happens. I'm betting you it's going to work. The other thing I've been using for getting deer out of my garden have been the Walmart white plastic bags. Just tie those on the fence post, and they wave and kind of make a little bit of noise, and they see white as a warning. That's why they flip their tails up when they run, supposedly to give a warning to other deer that danger is nearby. And so they don't like the white of the bag. At least that's what I was told. And so far, that's worked very well on our garden. So anyway, try the radio, try the Walmart bags, see if you have any luck with that. Things we do differently. You want me to go?
Yeah.
Okay, well, first thing I guess would be fencing. When we first started the homestead, and this is always, when you do stuff, you go back and you know, hindsight is 20/20, and so you find things that you would do differently. And so fencing was the thing I would do differently here on the homestead. And what I mean by that is when we first came here, we fenced out a bunch of paddocks where we were going to put the sheep in. And basically the housing area was open, and so we were going to allow them to go into the paddocks, and then when those were done, we would allow them just to eat around the homestead and go around other places too, because basically the property was fenced in, with just a few minor exceptions. But you know, they'd never find those places, and so I wasn't worried about them. They were in some far reaches of the property, but just in the area, it was fine. However, what we ended up doing is we kind of fenced ourselves out that way. And what I'd rather do is what my neighbor did. And we had a friend of ours come and tell us this, and my neighbor, who we featured in Season 2, Episode 1 of An American Homestead, Matt and Tara, they kind of changed directions and went ahead and fenced in their housing area. So here's your housing area, fence that in and guard it, and then make everything else available to the animals, because what you don't want is your animals to have access to your housing area. And so when someone had pointed this out to us, they quickly changed gears and decided to do that, and we have not done that yet. Just basically because we had put so much more effort into our fencing that it would be a little bit more of a correction to do and to switch gears and do differently. But we are going to do that. If we were going to do this differently, I mean, when you set up your homestead and you begin to lay out where everything is going to be on your homestead, when you decide to do this, think long and hard about how the fencing needs to be and where your housing area is going to be and what is going to have access and what is not. And so that is something I would definitely redo. I would basically seal off the housing area from everything, and then give access to just us, you know, walking paths or driveways or whatever. But then everything else would have access to, you know, the animals would have access to everything else, and then the housing area would be secure. And we didn't do that. So the housing area right now, as it is open. And I would do that differently.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about stuff.
Well, Zach was asking me to think about what I would do differently. And my first response was, well, I don't even really know, because I think that as a woman, my jobs are pretty much designated every day. Okay, so cooking, cleaning, laundry, taking care of the kids, you know, that kind of stuff. That fills my day. So, you know, I haven't had time to participate in a lot of the big projects. And it's been Zach, it's been my dad that have made those big decisions about what they're doing with the outside. My job is really the inside and the kids. But as I thought about this question, I thought, well, I guess really the only thing I can come up with is if I was to do something differently, it would be we got rid of so much stuff before we started homesteading, before we actually moved here. And when we moved out of the city, in preparation for that, it was probably a year or plus that I was getting rid of stuff. I just went through one closet after another, went through the basement, went through all of our stuff, little by little, getting rid of stuff. But I think the thing that I would, in hindsight, I know what we need now. So, you know what? I was doing my best to just try to figure it out back then. I know what we need now. So I would get rid of way more stuff. I would save only the homesteading stuff.
Give me an example of something we kept that we would get rid of.
We kept an ice cream maker. Why did we keep that?
We like ice cream. Come on.
We have no freezer. We kept a crock pot. Actually, you know what? I still use the crock pot.
Yeah.
But I'll put stuff in it, and then I'll take it and plug it in when we go somewhere. If we're going to a place for a potluck that I know has electricity, I'll take the crock pot. Is that cheating?
I remember we read that great brain book, and they were making ice cream. It was the 1890s. What did they use to make ice cream? How'd they get the ice?
Well, they had their ice delivered to them.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And they had an ice house, but they had it delivered to them. So they bought ice in the middle of summer. Well, because that's back when they had those ice trucks coming around through towns and cities.
Yeah.
And so you could get a big block of ice delivered to you from the truck. And they could it went into your, literally, it went into your ice box.
Right.
And so they just chiseled some of the ice blocks that they bought.
Do we still have the snow cone machine?
No, I think I got rid of that finally.
I really like the snow cone machine.
But we saved that all those years. I'm just saying that we live in a small house, and I think that when you're starting over, when you're homesteading and starting over,
you gotta get rid of stuff, man. You just gotta get rid of stuff.
Especially off-grid. It's really hard to keep a big house when you're off-grid. Keeping a house with electrical, I call them electrical servants, because you got a dishwasher. You know, you've got a vacuum cleaner, you've got a washing machine and a dryer. I mean, you've got a bunch of electric servants, basically. So if you're going to keep a off-grid house, I think you have to have a small house. It's not possible. Unless you have a lot of kids to pick up and do a lot of the housework.
Yeah, but getting rid of stuff, guys, it makes you mobile. It allows you to move around quicker, but also it allows you to buy a smaller space, because when you look at all the stuff that you have, and if you have way too much, you're thinking to yourself, I can't buy a small home. And, I have to afford something more expensive, because bigger is obviously always more expensive, or usually. And so in that case, it's costing you money to have so much stuff. So get rid of stuff, downsize, and downsize again, and then downsize again and again. Keep downsizing. When we first got married, we had a rule that we've told people before. This rule that if we don't use it in 6 months and it's not seasonal, we get rid of it. And we've kept that rule for the most part our entire marriage, and with some exceptions. But a lot of times, there's been times where we've had to go through and redo that rule and just kind of enforce it a little better than we have in the past. But for the most part, we've been keeping that rule, and if we don't use it in 6 months and it's not seasonal, why do we have it? Oh, just one day. I remember I had golf clubs before we moved, and I can remember the last time I went golfing. And it was basically for company things, and I was in the corporate world, and every once in a while I get invited to go to a golf thing or do some kind of golfing event, and that's why I had them, but I hadn't used them in forever, so I'm like, out they go,
I took my wedding dress to the Goodwill, and family members kind of looked at me crazy for doing that. But
what are you going to do with it?
I have a husband sitting right here next to me. I mean, the point was we got married. I don't need to hold on to the dress.
Well, it'd be a hand-me-down if we ever had a daughter, but
the likelihood of her even wanting to wear it.
Yeah, because women are so particular. Yeah, you're going to convince. Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, it got to the Goodwill. There's a lot of stuff we took to. I mean, tons of stuff. But my point is that we had to store it. We had to store a lot of stuff before we even moved into our house, because we lived in a trailer for a while, and when finally we did move into the house, without living with all the stuff for so long, because it was in storage, it was like, I can't believe I saved this. What am I going to do with this? I don't need this. I mean, it was constant. So I basically threw a half, again, of our stuff away.
Yeah. One of the other things we'd do differently if we started homesteading again, to start it over, things we do differently is rocks. We put these, all throughout the different areas of our immediate homestead here in the housing area, to where the homestead kitchen is now, and where the wood-fired pizza oven is, and all these places. We have these white rocks, it's like SP2, I think is what they call it. Although what we have is SP2 reject, which is, they say it's not good enough for the highway department because there's parts of it that aren't all white, and so it's really cheap SP2 that you can buy, And even though it's not all that cheap, it still costs a few $100s to get delivered to you, or a couple $100 delivered to you. And so we put this down as pathways and places around the house and just different areas. And it looks really nice when you get the rock all down. The problem is, a year later, there's grass growing in it. And because grass seed has come down, has rooted up, and then a year after that, or 6 months after that, it's more grass. The grass has gotten bigger. And it's just not...
It's like you can't even see the path anymore.
Yeah, you can't even see the path anymore. So what do? You got to go buy more rock. And so that's what we do. We go buy more rock. We put it down again. And what happens? More grass seed comes up. And so it's pointless to put the rock down. And so what we do differently is our neighbor went and got a wood chipper. And you can make your own mulch with that. It's a tractor PTO-driven wood chipper, which will work perfect for our I'm going to borrow it, I think, here soon to use it. But I think we're going to buy our own at some point, because you can make an unlimited amount of mulch, because every time I cut down a cedar tree, all of those branches basically just get piled up somewhere until we burn them or whatever. And you can make mulch out of that. It's really pretty mulch. It smells unbelievably good. It's that red aromatic cedar. And the bugs hate it. So it's almost like if you surround your house with it in your walking areas and around the base of your home, the bugs don't like it. It's kind of a repellent to a lot of different insects. And it just looks pretty. It's nice and red and purple colors and browns. And it smells really good. So I think if I was going to do it differently, I would get rid of the rocks. Because here's the deal. At the end of the year, you're going to have to put it down again, because the grass seed's going to get seeded into it when the fall happens, and you're cutting the grass and seed blows in from the woods or wherever, and it lands and grass seed takes root. You're going to have to put down a new layer. So instead of spending more money on a whole nother layer of rocks, I might as well just put down more mulch, and I can make my own mulch, because I'm always cutting down cedars or trees or whatever. I can just put it down again. And so if I was going to do it differently, we're constantly, spending money on the rocks, and it's like, no more. We're going to do mulch, because it's just, I have an unlimited supply of it. It smells good, it looks good, and it's free basically, because it's here. It's here in abundance. So we would do the mulch over the rocks, and also for the garden too. This year we put the cedar mulch around our garden for pathways. And it did a pretty good job of keeping the weeds at bay. And we're going to have to do it again, obviously, because seed roots in there. But we'll do it again. But it's free. I don't have to pay for it. Just pay for the one-time expense of the wood chipper, and that's it. Anyway, so yeah, that's what we do differently. And I want to go through some news items. I had some, one of my favorite places to go to on Facebook is, when I have the time, is a place called Homesteading Survivalism. And it gives different articles, and mostly it posts a lot of articles from a place called goodhomedesign.com. And sometimes I scroll through these, and I post a lot of them on our homesteading channel from goodhomedesign.com, and they're the same ones that get posted on the Homesteading Survivalism page over at Facebook. So just to list some of these things, and I can't post most of them because I just find they're a waste of time. And there are a lot of do-it-yourself projects, but I have to ask myself, would anyone really do these? So the first one listed right now, like if you go to Homesteading Survivalism on Facebook, and it's to how to build a pop can solar collector. And it's talking about taking these pop cans, painting them black, putting a piece of glass over the box that you're putting them in, and using that to collect heat. Does that really work? I don't know. A lot of the comments on some of these says that it doesn't, but they do get a lot of shares out of their stuff. Another one is do-it-yourself raised garden beds with cinder blocks. And I know right off the bat that's a bad idea, because cinder blocks have chemicals in them that are not good. You don't want in your plants. You don't want those in your garden bed. I like the idea of building raised beds, and I probably will build some more this year of just the cedar planks, making cedar wood that we make on our own sawmill, and making garden beds with that. But the cinder blocks, number one, you got to dig down, you got to build a foundation for them because you want to make them all even. And there's chemicals that excrete out of the concrete mixture. Someone made the point that cinder blocks today aren't even really cinder blocks anymore; they're just concrete. And they do have the secretion of the chemicals that come out of them. So would you build a raised bed with cinder blocks? I just don't think so. Not only that, I know that if you keep them out in the weather for a certain amount of time and they go through a harsh winter, that concrete will soak up moisture, and when that moisture expands, there's a good chance that block could crack. And so I'm not going to build a raised bed with cinder blocks. Anyway, I go through these articles on the Homesteading Survivalism website just to see what's out there, see what people are talking about, and oftentimes I'll post things that I think are worthwhile posting. But most of the time, I don't know if you're like me, I just see them as kind of pointless. And, that people really can't be doing these things.
I just think that some of them are gimmicks. I mean, they look cool.
Yeah, I think that's it, gimmicks. I mean, you see the zero pot on there. Everyone knows what we think about the zero pot.
Yeah, but I think that this is Zach and I have always talked about this kind of thing when it comes to homesteading in the survivalism realm, is that there's a lot of things, off-grid things posted that are not really tried by whoever has posted it. I mean, sometimes I don't even know where they come from. Someone started this idea, but it's just been shared so many times that almost now it's truth, and no one's ever really tried it.
So for example, if you scroll down, if you go to the Homesteading Survivalism page on Facebook, and you scroll down, they just posted this budget-friendly swimming pool deck. It was posted on August 23rd at 12:17 p.m. Budget-friendly swimming pool deck, and I'm sorry, but that kind of lumber is not budget-friendly. You can see in the picture, there's a bunch of 2x4s, 2x6s, and 4x4s, and folks, that is not, I don't know, unless you're finding that stuff laying around somewhere, but this lumber that it's got in the picture looks really nice, like nice lumber, and lumber is not cheap. That's one of the reasons we have a sawmill, is so we can make our own. And it's calling it a budget-friendly swimming pool deck, and there's no way I'd build that, because, I way prefer going down to the creek and swimming there. And the kids prefer it. There's no way. It'd be nice to have it. It looks nice and pretty there, but there's no way that's budget-friendly.
But I think that we have to make it clear that we're not trying to beat down someone else's idea. Like, that's not what we're trying to do.
I don't know. I think I kind of beat down this idea. This is ridiculous.
Zach.
Look at it. If you guys go to Facebook right now, the Homesteading Survivalism page, now that, it's just something they posted, okay? They didn't really say anything about it here, good or bad. I'm just saying that it's not budget-friendly. There's nothing budget-friendly about that. That's good lumber. And lumber is expensive.
Yeah. I know. I know what you're saying.
And not only that, but really, what does that do for the value? It's a permanent structure he just built there. Does that really do a lot for the value of the home?
No, because it's not a permanent swimming pool. It's one of those plastic.
Right, exactly. But that thing is pretty substantial that he just built around that frame.
Yeah. Okay.
I just think some of the stuff is ridiculous. But one of the ones I do like on here, like how to build a smokehouse. I think every homestead should have a smokehouse. It's the best way you can do best thing you can do to preserve your meat, to preserve your food for the wintertime, and you're going to harvest, you're going to butcher. If we butcher a cow, you butcher a sheep or a goat or whatever. People have long been using smokehouses to preserve their meat over the wintertime, and we still have meat hanging in our house, in our pantry, unrefrigerated, that is perfectly fine to eat. And it did a really good job of preserving that meat. So they have plans on how to do that, and we have plans on our website at AmericanHomestead.com where you can go there and download our plans and build your own smokehouse. They're really good, detailed set of plans where you can build your own smokehouse, and I think you'll get every homestead should have one. So leaving it at that, we'll go ahead and turn it over to the chat room and see where you guys, hey, listen, if you have questions, feel free to post them in all caps, and we will see it and try to answer your questions as best as we can. So go ahead and post your questions, all caps, and we'll see if we can get to them. But anyway, that was kind of the articles I wanted to get to today. There was one other one about landrace gardening. I don't know if we're going to get to because we're kind of running out of time, and I want to give people the option in the chat room to have their say and ask any questions they have. So, does a smokehouse have to be brick? Absolutely not. You can do it with wood. And it doesn't take a lot of wood either. But you can really build a smokehouse out of anything. I prefer a cold smokehouse rather than a hot smokehouse. So the cold smokehouse is the one y'all need to look at getting. You can do so much more with a cold smokehouse. But you can use any materials to build it. Any other questions? I'm looking for questions. Do you have any thoughts?
We're going to be there.
Are you going to do a video on the new building? Yes. Are you talking about? If you're talking about the sawmill, then yeah, we're going to be doing a video on it. I've already started filming some of it.
Do we paint our water tanks black, and why?
Yes, all of our water tanks are black. It keeps algae from growing inside of them, or at least helps to keep the algae from growing inside of them. So all of the algae is reduced. But painting it black is just a good thing to do with all your tanks. Are you on Echolink? No, I am a ham radio operator, but I'm not on Echolink. I'm vaguely familiar with what that is, but somebody's going to have to remind me. How does one start as one who owns nothing save up to start homesteading? I don't know. I mean, there's lots of different ways you can be. That answer is going to. How does one start homesteading who has nothing? I don't know, because that answer is going to be different for everyone based on your financial position in life. There are people I know who have nothing, and they moved out, and they saved up their pennies to buy a few acres here, and that's where they live on there, and they live in a trailer. And I know people who've lived in a tent, and they bought a few acres. So it's just.
We have neighbors who are living the most rough that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And they built a little cabin out of slab wood with a large family. And it's a little cabin.
Little cabin. Yeah, and they're living, and they're continuing to build as they go, but they're doing it.
They're just, you gotta, if that's your situation, you got to get rid of your expectations of what you see yourself having to have. Like, if you can't do that, I wouldn't say homestead. What you have to do is get rid of your expectations and be willing to do whatever you have to do to get where you want to be. If you can't do that, I would say don't homestead. Bottom line.
Yeah, is there anything from on-grid life that you miss?
I get that question all the time. I used to say refrigeration, but I don't even miss that anymore. I think we're fine without it.
Snow cones.
Zach misses snow cones. You know what, though? I miss smoothies. And my kids, well, my youngest doesn't know what a smoothie is, but my oldest remembers smoothies. We used to make them with yogurt and fruit all the time.
Yeah, we've had, going back to the other question, we have other people I know who just live in the middle of nowhere with a trailer or a tent, and you just got to do what you have to do to make it happen. If you want it bad enough, you'll you'll make sacrifices and do without if you have to. Why do you carry the particular pistols you have? What types of rounds do you load? I don't do my own loading. I use mostly Corbon power balls on my 9mm, and Jaimie does as well. But right now, this time of year, we are using basically snake shot as our first round because there's a lot of snakes in the area. So snake shot. I like your outdoor kitchen. Is there any future plan to improve? Donald says, and it's constantly being improved. We're finishing out the countertops, right?
Yeah, we still need to put, and we're thinking at this point it'll probably be some tile that we're probably gonna go look at.
We're not gonna do stainless steel?
No, it's too expensive, and we have to get it fabricated, I think. But I think we're gonna do tile, and I think we're gonna go to Habitat for Humanity and look and see what they.
Oh yeah, that's another great place, guys. I mean, if you're looking to save money, there's usually a Habitat for Humanity store in most major metropolitan areas, and there's one at the major, in Fayetteville area towards, Springdale. It's a major metropolitan area where we live, closest to where we live, and you can get some unbelievable deals at the Habitat for Humanity stores. And so when it comes to paint, when it comes to countertops, sinks, doors, everything, Habitat,
But you know what?
got all
I
kinds
mean,
of stuff.
as long as you have, I love things to look nice. I'm really it makes me happy. But you don't have to spend a lot of money to make something look nice. You can buy stuff used, you can remake it, you can do that. And if you can do it well, you can still make it look nice and it can still work really well for you. Someone said, should you go into debt to Homestead?
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
Do not go into, oh my gosh.
Get out of debt.
That's like the worst thing you could ever do.
Get out of debt. And any way you can, you've got to get out of debt. Being in debt makes you a slave, and you've got to get out of it. So get out of debt any way you can.
I've been buying stuff for 5 years for our future homestead. When is enough? Well, honestly, if you haven't been homesteading, I don't know from your question, I don't know if you're homesteading right now, but honestly, I don't even really think that you know what you need until you start. You just got to start.
Yeah, you just got to start doing it. You just got to move out and do it. Someone, Arnie asked if we have building codes in our area. Nope, no inspections, no building codes. None of that. So that's one of the reasons we like it. So hey guys, go ahead and if you want to ask questions, put it in all caps. How are you powering the sawmill? The Cajun Homesteader asked, and we are using the tractor. It's a PTO driven sawmill blade. So we just hook the tractor up, back the tractor up to it, and turn it on. There it goes. Off away it goes. Turn it up to the PTO mark, and we cut wood. Let's see. What stuff have you been buying for 5 years? Oh, the guy's asking him. Why are my questions skipped? What questions are you asking?
Ask us again.
Yeah.
Leora Jimenez?
Yeah. This sucks. Okay, Lou Dog. Let me help you out with a boot. Wait a minute. Get quiet.
What are you trying to do?
Just boot out whatever his name was. Lou Dog.
Why? What did he do?
I don't know. He just said this sucks. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna help you out with a boot.
I've emailed and emailed.
Here,
Leora, we get so many emails.
Yeah, we get
just
so many
can't.
emails.
We can't even answer them all.
survive, evade, resist, escape. Sear. Sear. I know Sear. What about living in a stone house? There's a guy up the road up from us who's got a cob house, not that far away, about 20 minutes away, and he's got a cob house, and it's falling apart. And I think people, when they go homesteading, they hear about all these alternative ways to build a house. Your vids suck. Okay, let me help you out too with a boot. Block user. Anyway, so people are like, hey, I'm going to build a straw bale house, or hey, I'm going to build a wood, I'm going to build an adobe house, or there's all these different types of housing methods they want to build out of. And there's a reason why houses are stick houses, right now. So I got all kinds of trolls. So who's going to be, I need people who can be, let's see, living on a dime. I'm just going to make you a moderator. And I'm banning people. There's trolls in the air. There's trolls up in them hills. Let the trolls out. Anyway, this guy who built this adobe cob house up the road from us, it's falling apart. He's got tarps all over it because it's leaking. It's because, a cob house in the desert might be great. But if you build it in like the Ozarks where there's high humidity and, or around 50 inches of rain a year, it's going to fall apart on you. And so there's just a reason why some houses, it's just like people want to try to be different, and you just can't be different. So They're just build a regular house, folks. Build a regular house, or have one built or whatever. There's different ways to save money and do it cheaply, do it affordably. But trying to go the route of building a cob house or a straw bale house or some of these other alternative, building a house out of pallets. Yeah, if you're a builder and you're really talented at putting things like that together and you can do so and do it well, great. But if you're not, I just think you're going to come up in a way that you're going to be hurting, in the long run. It's like this guy down the road from us who wanted to build a cob house, but I mean, in this type of humidity and this type of water that you have, it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. And so his house is just falling apart. No, we don't allow visitors. We're just too busy, guys. I mean, there's so many people we get email. I'm not kidding you, 2 or 3 times a week that I see where people are asking to come to our homestead and they want to stop by and they want to visit. And if we took in everybody who wanted to visit, we just wouldn't be able to get anything done. And I know, some of you guys, how much we work and how much we get done. And people are always saying, I can't believe you get so much done on your homestead. And you guys get done what you guys get done on your homestead. It's because we're always doing something every day. And not only that, but we're recording videos and we're sharing it with you guys. And to do all that, to take time, when someone shows up at our house, it puts that, if someone says, put the visitors... No, we don't put the visitors to work, because what happens is we end up talking and no work gets done.
But not only that, I don't, come on, am I the only woman out there who doesn't like women coming into my kitchen? I don't like it. Plus, this is my home, and I don't like inviting strangers into my home.
Yeah, I don't even, we get so many requests, we get so many requests for people to visit the homestead. I can't do it. And unless it's like something where we set that time aside, that's fine. But I just can't. We can't honor all those requests. And people, hey, well, you should open it up and people can pay you to come and do work clinics and retreats and, educational seminars. And dude, I cannot, I don't want that kind of traffic here. I mean, part of the reason we left was to get away from all you people. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I love you guys. But to be totally honest with you, we just, we like the quiet. We like, the peace of just, at the end of the day, I can go out on my deck and put my feet up and sip an ice cold drink, or, just relax in my house, do whatever. And, I'm giving you everything I can on YouTube so you don't have to come out here, And, so I don't take visitors. But we do totally get lots of requests. But we just can't honor that. Because if we did, we just wouldn't get anything done. That's what it comes down to. Let's see. More people to boot. Let's see. Okay. Goodbye. I like banning people. This is fun. All right, so it's about the end of the show. We're gonna call it quits. I'm gonna put some people in charge of troll deleted. Zach, hold the line. I need to put some people in charge, put some moderators in charge next time, and we'll just leave it at that. We'll get some moderators here. And Brad over at Big Family Homestead says, hey, listen, man, you need to get some moderators. Because of the trolls, they'll come out of the woodwork eventually, and that's fine. I don't mind the trolls, whatever. But I don't have to worry about banning you, so I can keep on task about what the topic is for the evening. So anyway, that's where we're at. And if you have other questions, send them in to us. Chances are we'll try to respond to them. We don't get to respond to them all, but that's why we do this show, so that we can come to you guys and do these interactions where you'll have access to us.
I think the key is, honestly, if I can give a little encouragement, if you have a question, keep it specific, because just the general questions like how do you get started, or how do you afford a property if you don't have any money, or those are not specific questions. So we have a really hard time answering them because they are individual to your situation. The answer is going to be different for everyone. So if you actually have a question, keep it specific, right? Yeah. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. If it's more specific, the better. But yeah, exactly. But we try. We love doing the show, and it's
Living on a Dime says she always gets, how do I save money? Oh, brother. Yeah, I can see that.
Get a piggy bank. Yeah. All right, guys, we'll leave it at that. See you next week. We'll have some new topics on schedule for next week, including landrace gardening. I think we'll get to that. That's a really interesting topic. And we'll see what else. So hope you have a good, productive week on your homestead. If you don't have a homestead, keep plugging away. You'll get there. All right. See you next time on the homestead. Meet